have a question.
Okay.
You want to do a challenge with me? Do you know what Vlogmas is?
It's where you record every day up until Christmas.
I'm doing it. You want to do it?
Yes.
Promise?
Like on my channel?
Yes.
I mean, if people watch me work out.
What are you doing, Coda?
Apparently this is day one of Vlogmas, boys. What up?
Done deal. Congrats. You just signed yourself up.
We need a Christmas tree.
Good morning, my beautiful people. Welcome back to the channel. Today we are gonna start working on Bobby's STI. There's a few little things on the car that should have been fixed when we originally rebuilt this car, because if you guys don't remember, if you're new to the channel or something, we bought this STI behind me, completely totaled, smashed in the front, motor needed work. It needed a ton of work, and we're like 99% there. There's a few little things we gotta fix, and that is what we're gonna get started on today. I figured I'd give the car a bath. The car runs fine, it drives fine, everything's good to go. Bobby probably put like 10,000 miles on it. She put a lot of miles on this car, but to bring it to like OEM standard or my standard, it needs some love. We just foamed the car, so we have to let that sit on there for a little bit. But I did order in a new pressure washer. It's one that I've been wanting for a very, very long time, and it's kind of expensive, but I'm super stoked to get it in. It is from Obsessed Garage. If you guys follow him here on YouTube, you know he puts out a ton of good content related to car detailing stuff. So very nice wall-mounted pressure washer. That'll be sick to have that in and finally just be done with this whole pressure washer, I guess you could say, series that we've been doing. We've gone through like 2 or 3 now, so I'm stoked. So we found out that, or we didn't find out, I'm assuming that the frame on the STI is bent. But thankfully, not the actual frame itself. Pretty confident that the subframe is bent, and there's a few reasons for it. Let me show you. Let's hop up in this car. Let me show you what's going on. First reason, look how far back this shifter sits. That's in 4th gear, that's neutral. That's 3rd gear. That looks like neutral, but that's actually 3rd gear. So what that means is this tranny is pulled back. It's all new shifter linkage in this car, so I know it's not that. Tranny's pushed back, which also means, because obviously the motor and the tranny are bolted right together, right? The motor is also pushed back. And the original thing that I figured out when we were putting this car back together, one of the very last parts we went to put on is the pitch stop. The pitch stop is like a little bar. It's a little brace that sits right underneath the intercooler. That thing appeared to be just a little bit too long. Now, when we were originally working on the car, when we first got it, tore everything out, the subframe looked fine visually. But seeing how everything pretty much connects to that subframe, the motor mounts are on the subframe. Oh wait, one more thing as well. When we were going to put on the tranny cradle, the tranny mount, that thing was like a little bit off as well, and thankfully it's rubber mounted, so you can kind of just pry it and then put the bolt in. But seeing how the motor is bolted to the subframe, my assumption is, and I could be wrong, is that the subframe is bent a little bit or something's pushed back which is also pushing the motor in the tranny back a little bit. And it's not a big deal. Like I said earlier, the car drives fine, but it's one of those things that I know is a problem with the car. And I don't know what else it could be other than a bent subframe. So it looks like what we're gonna be doing today is tearing out the old subframe. I'm not sure how difficult this is gonna be. I'm assuming it's gonna be fairly difficult. So we gotta get the car up on the lift. I don't know how high we can go because I feel like we're gonna need to brace the engine from the top because all the suspension, the subframe, the control arms, the wheels, obviously, all that stuff comes down. So here we have this beautiful new used subframe out of a 2016 STI. We bought this guy back when I lived at my parents' house, like 5-6 months ago. We've had this thing laying around this long and we're just now gonna throw it in the car. So this here's what we got, all right? This guy bolts to the actual frame right here with those two huge bolts right there. Same on that side. Steering rack sits in here. Motor mounts both on right there. Lower control arms will go there. And what else? That's really about it. This may be actually easier than I thought. The only problem is when we drop the old one out, seeing how the whole motor sits on this. Yeah, that's kind of my, that's my worry. Let me show you what I'm talking about with this here tranny mount. Look at this right here. You see how, wait, is that broken now? I hope I didn't crack that rubber, but you can see how far pushed back this is to where, from where it should have been. It should be forward like 3/8 of an inch. This thing right here is what we are gonna be replacing. So to start, let's just pop off the skid plate, pop off the wheels, and see where that leaves us. Also, I'm super excited to do this because this is actually gonna be the first time we really get to use and dig into our new tool set from SK Tools. So I think the best option here is to have the car this high up in the air, unbolt pretty much everything that we need to unbolt, and then lower the car down, get out the engine crane, lift up on the motor, and then unbolt the actual subframe from the frame, pull it out, see what's going on. I'm gonna go ahead and start with some suspension. So we have lower control arm here. We may have to pull the entire lower control arms out. I just don't want them to be in the way. So lower control arms, the sway bar, the entire steering rack needs to be unbolted. I don't know if it needs to completely come out, but for surely unbolted from the subframe. And then there's all these little crossbars right here that we can go ahead and just pop those off right now. Hello?
Hi, Hawk.
Hi.
When are you gonna be home?
Couple hours.
Well, can you just come home with Jimmy B's pizza and some beer?
You're kind of a fatty.
Well, that's what I want.
You want to see your car?
Yes. It's broken. Was the subframe broken?
I haven't got it out yet. It's that big old black thing right there. Understand?
Kind of. It's super blurry. It's hard to see.
All right, boys, we made some really solid progress. Lower control arms are out. Where did they go? Well, there's one right there. Sway bar's off. That little bracket tree is off. Skid plate is off. And right now we are working on this here steering rack. We do need to pull the entire steering rack, and it's because the lines actually run through the subframe through this hole right here. So we need to unbolt the lines, which kind of sucks because then we're gonna have to bleed the system, which isn't a big deal, just a little bit extra time. As soon as we get the steering rack out of here, we should be able to unbolt the engine, the motor mounts from the subframe, and then we're gonna let the car down a little bit more, hook that guy up, lift up the motor, and then unbolt the subframe from the frame. All right, guys, we got everything torn apart. The last thing to do is pull out that engine crane and get this motor lifted up a little bit because I loosened 2 of the bolts on that subframe. And yeah, there's really nothing else holding that motor from just like falling down. It will obviously not fall out of the car, but it probably start breaking stuff and tearing hoses and wires and whatnot. Lift the motor up, pull out the 4 subframe bolts, subframe will come out. All right, we got the subframe out, or the cradle out, whatever you like to call it. First glance, it doesn't appear to be severely bent. Like I mentioned before, when we originally put this car together, I didn't really notice anything. But when they're side by side, it does appear that there is like some random height differences. If they're both sitting like that, it seems that the old one is sitting a little bit lower than this new one. Either way, it was cheap enough to replace. If this isn't the problem, I'm not super bummed about it, but I'm like 100% sure that this is the problem. I don't want to leave the car like this all night. We are running out of time. Let's go ahead and throw the new subframe in, just get it sitting up in there just so the motor is not resting on this engine crane all night. New subframe is back up in the car. Should be good to go for the night. Now we won't be worried about it. I do gotta give a little product review, I guess. I saw someone's comment the other day about these impact swivels and where I put them in the toolbox. They're like, you might as well move them to the top of the toolbox because the second you use them, you're gonna use them all the time. And that is so true. These things are super handy. There was a bolt for the lower control arm that I could not get to. Of course, the lower control arms are very tight, so I didn't want to use just a ratchet on it. And using the swivel allowed us to get to that lower control arm bolt, and they feel nice. When you're spinning it with the impact at very high RPM, there was no binding at all like there is with the traditional swivel, or at least the ones that I've used in the past. So big shout out to SK for coming out with an amazing product like this. And big shout out to SK Tools for also sponsoring the channel. I will have them linked down in the description box below with my discount code that saves you 25% off any tools that you guys could ever want. Really hope you guys enjoyed today's video. Peace out. I'll see you boys tomorrow when we get this thing all finished up. You know what? I figured I would add in some little clips here at the end. So let's jump in the Evo 10, head to the pizza shop, head to the beer shop, and get some goodies. Never seen you so excited in your life.
Honey, I haven't had pizza in like 10 years. Okay, here's your ranch. My ranch is way better than your ranch.